The Last Duel is a Ridley Scott epic period piece war drama film. Now, I wanted to watch this one in theaters, but I just couldn't find myself able to get there. It played in theaters for a while too. I don't know why. I didn't want to watch it for full price. Mainly because the subject matter is pretty heavy. You know, it's about rape accusations, and it's also like 2.5 hours long. So I just didn't, you got to be in the right mood to watch this kind of movie. This movie is about 3 different characters, and the movie sort of explores each perspective like Rashomon or Jackie Brown. So the first perspective, the first 40 minutes of the movie is about Jean de Carouge. He is a brutish sort of knight who's into like chivalry. He's good at fighting, and he fights for his king. He's loyal. And in the opening 40 minutes, we show what his life is like. He marries a woman, and he treats her well. Everything's going fine until she accuses his friend, now turned sort of like frenemy, Jacques Legris, of sexual assault. And it's kind of awkward because, back in the day, you can't prove it, and so they have to go take it to the highest courts available. This movie is very emotionally complex and heavy. It really explores the misogyny of back in the day, but also shows a flashlight onto today's, sort of the culture of stigma of sexual assault. I mean, a lot of people who get sexually assaulted don't really are able to get the kind of justice they want because they have to go to court and they have to prove it and they have to relive it and they have to have their name put out in public. It's very harrowing and emotionally draining. That happens in this movie too. But the second chapter of the movie is really interesting because we get to follow Legris and basically his perspective, and basically he's not a monster, but the way the society is formed allows him to do whatever he wants. He's really close friends with the cousin of the king, played Count d'Alexandre Pierre. We'll call him Count Pierre from now on. But basically, Count Pierre is very corrupt and gives Legris land and favors. And Legris can get whatever he wants. If he wants to have sex with a woman, he'll just do it. And, she can't really say anything or do anything. So when he decides to visit Marguerite at her home when she's alone, he decides to do what he feels like he can do. And he doesn't feel bad about it. And then we finally get to the third, the truth. And it's really eye-opening because of the way the different perspectives are whitewashed. I mean, the first 40 minutes makes it seem like Carouge is like this dashing, heroic, loyal man, underdog. But in the second perspective, you find out he's a bit of a lout. He's a bit of a rabble-rouser. He's a bit of a, confrontational sort of Neanderthal-like man with not a high education. And he doesn't have any subtlety or tact. And in the third one, you find out he doesn't treat his wife that well, actually. And, she's given the rawest deal. And that's kind of like the core theme of the movie, is that women were not treated back then very well, or now. So they basically take their case to Pierre. They go over him because he's corrupt. And then they eventually get in front of the king, where they will allow a duel to the death. And basically, under the rules of the duel, whoever wins the duel told the truth. So if Carouge dies, basically she lied, and she will be burned at the stake for heresy. And if he wins, then Legris committed rape, and he will be killed on the battlefield. So the last sword duel, the actual duel itself, is actually breathtaking. It's probably one of the finest action sequences I've seen in a long time. We know that Ridley Scott can do period piece action. If you've seen Gladiator or The Duelists or any of his other period piece movies, he's got a really deft hand at just the grittiness and the choreography. The movie is also really long, though. I mean, it's 2.5 hours long. You definitely feel the runtime as we jump through the different chapters, but also they repeat stuff, which is kind of repetitive. But also it kind of feels like whenever the movie is slowing down, they throw in an obligatory action sequence, and not all of them are amazing. Like the opening scene is pretty good, but then there's 2 more battle scenes that are like a minute long. They're just there, and it just doesn't feel like they really matter. They're just like, oh, the story's getting a little boring. Let's just have a couple of people slice at each other and beat each other's heads in. So, I mean, there is the gritty, violent action sequences, but the last duel part of the movie is the best part. But the movie is emotionally, like, draining. You get to feel for these characters. I really like the different perspective switches and how, like, in their own mind, they think they're the hero, because everyone does that. Everyone thinks they're faultless sometimes. You know, you think, oh, you know, like, for example, Carouge, when he marries Marguerite, she is the daughter of a traitor, so no one really wants her, and he's only marrying her for the dowry. And, you know, he makes it seem like he's really, like, chill about it, but then in the second perspective or the third one, you find out that he was, like, really upset about it. And, you know, the way you get to see, you know, things from other characters' perspectives and how they react. Because, like, in the first perspective, we get to see him complaining about something, but in the second chapter, from Legrice's perspective, you see how, like, crazy he went at him. And then, yeah, so the movie is really, like, deep and complex with all of its themes about, you know, like, this is the way society treated women back in the day. There are some cringy spots, too, like, near the end. But overall, The Last Duel is really well done in terms of its set design, its costuming, it's a really, like, complicated movie. It's definitely not for everyone. I can see why this movie didn't do well in theaters. Ridley Scott said, oh, millennials, they want to just look on their phone, but you have to, you know, consider other factors. The movie came out like the middle of October. It was going up against, of 2020, it was going up against No Time to Die, which is like a 4-quadrant film. Like, anyone likes James Bond. And then later we go up against Halloween. So, like, it's a 2.5-hour period piece drama about rape. And, like, that's just, like, something that, like, sounds like a total downer. You wouldn't take your kids to that. You wouldn't take your parents to that. You know, it's a hard sell. And he also, like, made it with Fox before Disney grabbed Fox. So there was a whole hullabaloo. So the movie didn't do well. I mean, it cost $100 million and made like 30. But overall, The Last Duel is a really interesting, like, probably one of the better films I've seen lately, just because of how unapologetic it is and, like, how it twists society. Like, you get to see all the different facets of, like, back in the day. And how it, like, reflects on today's current climate in terms of the same themes. It's just really brutal and raw and harrowing. So I give The Last Duel a 7.5 out of 10.